alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, I must say that I am also excited about having the opportunity to share whatever knowledge that I have, to interact with you through this unbelievable media, which I used to dislike so much before, okay, because I don't really believe so much in online, not face-to-face teaching. However, with the internet and with, I think the COVID-19, it accelerated the virtual media of instruction. Whether we like it or not, we have to learn how to use it. But I guess I belong to the older generation, so I think it is more suitable for the younger generation, because we have to learn so much things at this age. Okay. So what I will share with you, this course is entitled the Hikmah Pedagogy of Philosophical Inquiry. Yeah. And this is sort of like my journey. So before I go and dwell into the Hikmah Pedagogy itself, I would like to share with you what brings about this notion, this conception of the Hikmah Pedagogy of Philosophical Inquiry. I guess, as you are aware, okay, the Muslims were having a lot of problems, and we began our downfall after we rose up in the 8th, 9th, 10th century. We were the pillars of science, even empirical sciences. We had our own philosophical sciences. However, due to our own history and the attack of the Mongol in Baghdad in 1258, that sends Muslims to be the backseaters. They destroyed many of our scholars. And from then on, we tend to slip down and down after we pass all the sciences, the knowledge that we have, to the Western world through Andalusia. Now, what I imagine is that what we are seeing contemporary modern times today, we notice that there is a problem with the Muslim, despite their effort to redeem themselves. You know, we have been struggling to redeem ourselves, because after that downfall, we were colonized. And then probably you know that we had the Islah movement by Jamaluddin Afghani and Abdu, and other movement, Sanusia, and so on, to elevate ourselves back to where we were before, to reclaim our glory. And many things that we did, I think one of the effect of being colonized was that after independence, which most of us reached independence in the 40s and 50s, okay, we realized that we had been colonized, and what the Western world has done is they set up the secular school system running parallel with our religious school system. So I think there is this educational dualism. So upon independence, many of our scholars attempted ways to solve this problem of secularism and religious schools, secular schools and religious schools. Okay, so as we can see, if we read the work of our scholars like Al-Mahum Asma Faruqi, Said Naqib Alatas, they diagnosed the problem to education. So since then, we had been trying our best to overcome educational dualism by having integrated curriculum. Okay, and hopefully by that we will not have the secular mind, the secular attitudes, and also secular action, the schizophrenic Muslims. You know, you can see that the Muslims are schizophrenic in the case of Malaysia, for example. Okay, it's just by the way the women dress. By just looking at the way the women dress, if you have been to Malaysia, you realize that they want to wear the hijab, but at the same time, they still want to wear t-shirts. They want to wear the Western dressing. So when the Arabs came to Malaysia, Arab students, okay, when they came to Malaysia, they saw the way the Malay dress. They were sort of shocked also at one point, you know, because they didn't expect that. But this is what happened. That shows that we are schizophrenic because we want the best of both worlds, but we can't forgo even the Western influence on us. Okay, so what happened is that we tried to solve the problem of educational dualism through the education integration of the curriculum. Otherwise, our religious school just be producing ustazah, you know, religious official, and the professional come from the secular school. So I think we did that in the 80s in the context of Malaysia when Brother Anwar was the Minister of Education. And then we went further on. You remember 1977, there was this First World Conference on Muslim Education. They come up with several resolutions. From there, you can see the movement to Islamization of knowledge and Islamization of education. So I'm trying to put the whole 100 years event in a brief way, okay? So you can see all the efforts that have been taken to overcome this problem. And I would say that I was sort of involved in this process. Even my PhD thesis was on educational dualism in Malaysia. So we worked together. We established the National Religious Secondary School that had components of Islamic and also professional sciences. The aim was to produce professionals who are integrated and anchored with Islam. And then we move on with the World Conference to the establishment of universities, Islamic universities. Again, I was with IIUM, and therefore there was the mission of triple I's, Islamization, integration, internationalization, and comprehensive excellence. So in other words, we have been working, and we have been progressing. Okay, so why talk about this pedagogy? I mean, we are making the progress. Are we not happy with the progress? But I think it's as we become more Islamic, you notice that, I mean, there are more Islam in Malaysia and also in many parts of the Muslim world today. There is the resurgence of Islam, right? And that resurgence of Islam also, what do you call this, drew more Muslims to go back to their roots. However, with that resurgence, also you notice that there is something wrong with the mind. And I think Professor Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman wrote the book, The Crisis of the Muslim Mind. The mind seems to become narrow, closed-minded, fatalistic, lazy to think. And I began to think, okay, we have Islamophobia, ISIL, you know, there's still something not right. And when you look at it, all of us, you and me, if we come from the Islamic Muslim countries, we have a lot of religious subjects. For example, in Malaysia, during my time, it was just 3 periods a week, means 1.5 hour a week. But now it comes to 5 to 7 periods a week. So we did not get reading the Quran from the school system then. We got it outside through the home of religious teachers. But today, the increase in the hours means that the school is trying to cater to the needs of all the Muslims. there are improvements in terms of memorization of the ayats. They memorize more verses than we do. They know more facts than we do, probably because they study more Quran, more hadith in the school system. But however, if you look at the educational practice, there's something that is missing. Most of them are just following their teachers. Okay. So when I look through, in other words, if we were doing Islamic education beginning from year 1, grade 1 in school, and then we end our religious education at the end of secondary school, that means we have been exposed to about 11 years of Islamic studies. Why is it that we are still not good? I think the issue here is that there is something wrong with the pedagogy. That was when I started looking at the pedagogy. And it so happened that I had one master student who was doing a thesis on thinking skills, teaching thinking skills. That was way back in 90s, I think. And then from her literature review, so in other words, we learn from our students, right? Not just our learn from us, okay? From her literature review, I saw there were couples of approaches that she described and explained. And that was the first time I saw philosophy for children as a method. And then I was doing, for my PhD, I was doing educational foundation. I was doing sociology, history, and philosophy of education. I was looking for a method that would employ philosophy, but I haven't found it until I read that literature. But anyway, what we notice is that what is happening in school is students are learning facts by not getting meaning. If I can show you the slide here, maybe I can share you the screen. Okay. I'll just go straight to this slide. Yeah. Go, this wrong one. Not responding. Hold on.
Okay.
I have to wait. It's close. Okay. Let me try to open again. Let me have my slide disappeared. Let me open my slide back. I thought I prepared everything already. Anyway, see if I can get this. Online course. Okay. Oops. Sharan, where are you?
Okay. Yeah. Still with you.
Where is, I can't see it. Okay. Where the two files? Hold on. I can close this. Whoops. What is this? Close this one. Can you see this?
We still see you, but not the slide.
I didn't share it yet. Let me check.
Yeah.
Where's the sharing thing? Oh,
The green button there,
yeah, I
share
know.
screen.
Wait, let me move this. Ah, where's that green button?
At the bottom. Maybe your screen is different. Share screen.
What is it now? There's always two of these. Why there are two of them?
Profile or
Two. Let me try. Two file on screen.
okay, that's coming up. Okay.
Which one is?
Oh
See,
yeah.
there are two files. Can you see two files or?
It's still one, but two slide in one page.
If I close, then they.
How about you click on that
Let
file?
me try this one. I'm sharing screen, right?
Okay.
Okay. Where are two online? Oh, I got this one.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
where is it? This one. New share. It's the share. Yes, you are screen sharing. Okay. Can you see this?
Okay. You can see it better now.
Okay, let me make it bigger. Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
So what we are doing in the classroom today, and even after we have gotten the internet, we are teaching our students about Islam. We tell them what is Rukun Iman, what is Rukun Islam, but we don't teach them how to be a Muslim for this century. We are just information driven and not transformation driven. They memorize the Quran, they know so much. I mean, they can be like as good as a computer, with reciting the computer. But had that transformed their life, that's something else. And we are having in fact, today, I sometimes fear that we can see the mushrooming of a lot of tafis around. Not that I'm against Islam, not that I'm against the Quran, but that was not the purpose that Allah sent the Quran. It is just to be memorized, and it does not transform our life, cannot make us people who are thinkers, who are wise, then we have missed the point. So this is the worry. This is the worry, and we are being oppressed and what do you call this? Dominated by others. We are just followers. We are just consumers. We are not leading, and we are not reviving anything. So when I look at this, we have to revive an old pedagogical tool that has been successful. But before, and this is where the Hikmah Pedagogy comes in. Okay. Now, before I go on, I want to show you one video clip. Okay. To tell you what's going on in the world today. This is a bit outdated, but still it's relevant. Okay. Just for a short while. Oh, before you look at the video clip, I'd like you to open your what do you call this, your chat, and any question that you have, please write it down in the chat box. Okay, don't wait until the end.
The video has sound or not, Prof?
Huh?
The video has sound or just?
There is sound. You don't hear it? I hear it. So you don't hear the sound?
We don't hear the sound. But from my side, I don't know about others. Yeah, the others also don't hear it. It's always like that. There's some button.
Really?
But it's okay. If it's short, we can follow. No problem.
Yeah, it's short. It is select a microphone, select a speaker. I did not test that. Okay, never mind. You can just watch it. Okay. There is no, the sound is just music. Okay?
Oh. Okay, can start again. Okay.
So we are moving very fast actually. When they say we are from IR, in the first industrial revolution occurred 1776, when you use the steam engine to create the locomotives. Okay. For the next stage, it took a long time before we come to the electricity. Okay. And then we go to the computer stage. That one shorter. So from IR2, IR3, the pace get faster, very fast. Okay. And that's why we cannot predict what is going to happen. People today talk about how do you evaluate university. One of the criteria is employability, right? But we cannot easily find employment today because when you graduate, you are not prepared for a job for your time, for that time. You are prepared for something that is in the past. So as a consequence of that, you are considered as unemployable. But you notice today that these graduates, they are still working. They're not unemployed, but they have to use their own intelligence, their own creativity, and be wise enough so that they can survive for their time. Okay. So this change. How do you prepare people for that kind of century? This is what we call the IR4. Now, what has the internet done to us? Let's see whether they have any question that you. Oh, somebody said you can't hear my voice. Is it? Can you hear my voice?
Now we hear clearly, Prof. No problem.
Okay.
Yes.
Was there any questions?
So far, not yet. So far.
Not yet, no? Okay. So I proceed then. So what happened is that the internet came and sort of wrecked our life. I would say wrecked our life. It is a new, completely new world. Okay. What are the things that's needed today by them is no more being ace, what do you call that? Getting A's in examination, or what do you call the acing, Ace. That's not the thing that is necessary anymore. Because you might have many A's, but you don't have the necessary skills, the necessary knowledge. So it's not so much the product anymore. It is the process. What we need today It's the process. Process of what? Process of how to think about things, how to be creative, how to be, of course, we can have all of these things and become very intelligent, but we can be crooked or crooks. Okay? So we have to be ethical as well. And how do we maintain our spirituality? Now, if you look at let me share my screen again. Okay. Where am I going? I'm going to the new. Okay. Oops. Shit, it's closed. Let me open. Sorry, yeah. Ah. You have to be patient with me.
It's okay.
Wait.
It'll be better, inshallah.
Okay, let's see if I can open this. So I think you yourself can spell out what are the changes in education that has been brought about by the internet. Okay. First of all, is I would say that what is necessary now is not the product but the process. We are not interested in being able to master the information and regurgitate it in the examination or answering somebody very well quickly. No, we are more interested in the thinking process that bring about that product. So we're more interested in the thinking, in the communication, in the collaboration, those kind of skills. Okay? Because when you look at even economics, we are not more talking about manpower, but we're talking about K economy. Those who have knowledge will flourish. Those who have information will be faster. And then we are talking about the, it's not so much, you have the capital, but the knowledge. And then service industry, look at Grab, look at Facebook. They're not tangible product. They are just connecting the consumer with the producer. Okay. And what about students? We are not going to treat students as empty can before, where we pour knowledge in the empty can. No, they're no more empty cans. They are going to be students who must learn how to construct knowledge for themselves. And we have to move from teacher ask, student answer. In old days, the teacher will ask, the student will answer. Now, we want everybody to ask the question and the community deliberates the answer. So these are the changes. That's why you see now in the school system today, you notice that every school that I visited for the teaching practicum of my research, there are classes of about 36 or 40, 42 students. They're sitting in groups of 6 or 5. But do they know how to handle the teaching methods? They are still teaching the old ways, but they are trying to implement new methods. So this is why it doesn't work. Okay. Now, so this I notice is the greatest problem for our Muslims, because if Islamic education, which is the core subject for Muslims, is being taught well, I think we can make students go very fast. Not only go very fast, but become more action-oriented, more transformed than just vegetate. Okay. Now, according to the researchers, the 21st century skills, this is the 21st century skills. Ability to find, organize information, solve problems, okay, analyze and synthesize data. Sorry. Okay, go back. Sorry. So they must apply learning to new situation. They must apply whatever they learn today, not just memorize. They must improve their own learning and performance. communicate. They must be able to communicate in different form, in writing, in speaking, works in teams, and learn independently. So this is the new skill of 21st century, okay? And if you transform that, you get the critical, creative, yeah, creative thinking, critical thinking, communication skill, and collaboration. So these are the processes. We are more interested in our education, not, but getting them to do it, to know the process of doing it, and this is the process. So it's a different ball game altogether. It's not just trying to tell you what's inside the book anymore, like we used to do. It is. So what is the way? I tell you frankly, the Malaysian government way back in 1996 talked about smart schools, and they want to for these smart schools, they have to have good teachers, and they talk about using the Socratic methods. They mention it in their instruction manual. Teachers should be employing the Socratic methods, which is raising a lot of questions. But what they do in the teacher training colleges, instead of giving the teachers the skill, they are just telling them more information about what is critical thinking, creative thinking. In the KBKK class, they call it Kemahiran Berfikir Kritis dan Kreatif. So in the end, it failed because the teacher don't know how to read. They're just given the theory, but the teacher don't see the practice. So this is why we need to see the practice. That only can be done. Okay. Now, what happened is that if you look at education in the Islamic curriculum, you will notice that there is emphasis on meaning. Okay. For example, if you look at education in Islamic civilization, okay, if you look at the Quran, our main source of knowledge, the Quran asks us to do a lot of thinking. Afala taqilun, afala yatadabbarun, okay, afala yatafakkarun. So all these things asking you to read, ikra, ponder, think, that means asking you to be critical. So this is already in our civilization. That's why we rose very fast during the early period of Islam. There is ijtihad. You have to use your mind to make ijtihad. Example, for all of us know that Muaz, when he was sent to as the governor to Yemen, the Prophet asked him, how do you judge? He said, of course, we based on the Quran. It's not the Quran, the Sunnah. Then the Sunnah and the companion. Not there also. Then I'll use my own ijtihad. Then you look at the Quran. The Quran said, yaklu alaihi ayatihi wa yuzakkihim wa yu'allimul kitab wal hikmah. So it asks you to read the ayat, then read the Quran. So it cannot be talking about two same things. To me, it cannot be talking about two same things. The ayat, the first one is referring to the open universe, to the open book. So that's where the scientific method came in, and the Muslims were the first to discover the scientific method. Until they interact with Aristotle and his Aristotelian method, okay, which is more rational than empirical. And then the Quran asks Muslims to be critical. They review, be critical about your custom. I'm sure you have come across verses in the Quran when the Muslim were what they call this challenge, when they said why they were doing this, because they were following the way of their forefathers. And then the Prophet said, even if they are doing it wrong, I mean, so this is, in other words, what I'm saying is that if we read the Quran, you are producing a lot of Hafiz and Hafizah who fast. If we read the Quran, Hafiz, read the Quran, but read it meaningfully. It will not just be for memorization, because all of these seek for us to really ponder over it and look under it. That's when hikmah comes in. And finally, Islam recognized the importance of social context in the development of education in human being. Look at Ibn Khaldun. He was the first, I would say he was among the first ethnographer because he studied civilization. Actually, he wanted to study history and come up with a method of history because all the historians of the past were repeating without scrutinizing their facts. But in the end, he ended up being a sociologist because he was studying civilization and the need. Men cannot live alone. That's why they developed civilization. So that is a chapter by itself, okay? But what is happening is that, what we notice is that, what we notice is that we are not teaching education for meaning. What is going on in the school, not just Islamic education, other subjects as well, but we are very concerned about Islamic education because it can be better than all the other subjects because we put so much emphasis on it. If you look at the meaning of education from the way Al-Atas defines it, what is ilm? He said, ilm is the arrival of meaning of something or an object of knowledge in the soul. There is one definition where the soul is not active. Or he says it's the arrival of the soul at the meaning of something or object of knowledge. Now, the second definition, the soul is active. The first one is not active. It's like a gift given to you. Your soul is like a parabola, okay? If your parabola is very shiny, you know, the television reception, you can see astro or you can see channels from all over the world. With having parabola, you go to many countries, you can see big parabola, Indonesia, Africa, for example. Okay? Then they get many channels from all over the world. You can do that if your parabola is shiny. And that is where the soul receives. That is really a gift. But the other one is you have to acquire it, you have to work for it. And that is the arrival of the soul at the meaning. But whatever it is makna. Aims mean the arrival of makna. If you just read information and it doesn't give any implication to you, it remains a fact or it remains a statement, but it doesn't affect you, that is not knowledge. Okay, that's not knowledge. I know Kuala Lumpur is the capital of Malaysia, so what? Huh? That's a fact. Okay. But if I know that Kuala Lumpur lies between two rivers, you know, that was how it began, that means a lot more things I will know. Okay. Or I can draw or infer. Not only Al-Atas is saying this, even the Western scholars today, they are saying that, okay, our education is meaningless. For example, Brunner is Jerome Brunner, the psychologist, he's saying that learning is an effort to give the meaning or understanding of nature and themselves, seeing the whole picture from a variety of cognitive perspectives. So you can see the whole picture. Sternberg said we have been too focused on intelligence, you know, IQ, so much, but not wisdom. This is very different from intelligence. Wisdom is different from intelligence. And T.S. Eliot, he said that the more we pursue ICT today, he said, where is the wisdom that was lost to knowledge? And where is the knowledge that was lost to information? We have lost it. We have lost it. So the Western themselves, the Western psychologists, philosophers, okay, find that their education is not meaningful anymore. Okay, just like what our scholars have found. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going backward now. So it's what is thinking? If we say that we want them to be meaningful, it involves thinking. So what is thinking? Okay, thinking is the process of discovering relationship between objects, ideas, and concepts. Once we know the relationship, then they provide meaning. For example, If you know that you are an ibad, an ab, and there is the rob, okay, then you know you are your position in relation to the rob. You are a servant. So when you know that you are a servant, you know your obligations, you know your duties, you know you cannot go beyond the rob. You suppose, Adam, I don't think I have much time for more example, but to have good thinking, we need to cultivate higher order thinking, okay? Not just the recall, that what we were saying is now, recall, knowing, okay? With lacking understanding. And this is where people always quote Bloom's. Bloom is a big name in Western psychology, educational psychology. He came up with the notion that this is what is taxonomy of cognitive domain. If you only focus on knowledge, knowing, and understanding, this is low order. In fact, some also put application as low order, but actually application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation are higher order thinking. Now, if you consider analysis, as I said just now, you consider analysis as critical thinking, synthesis is creative thinking, and evaluation means judgment. These are called higher order thinking, okay? And this is what we would like to achieve, okay? Some people try to separate critical and creative thinking. Actually, no. Both thinking are necessary. Okay? Critical thinking involves reasoning and critical judgment, whereas creative thinking involves craft, artistry, and creative judgment. They support and reinforce each other. For example, when the critical worker invents new premises or criteria, or when a creative worker designs a new band to an artistic tradition. In other words, forget about in the arts. Okay, suppose you are in the applied sciences or other fields. Okay, even in business, you will not be able to design new things if you're not critical enough to be able to see the flaws or the weaknesses of the existing things. So that's where the critical comes in. The creative comes in when you want to get a solution to it. So this is why we said critical and creative cannot be separated. But critical thinking requires criteria. Suppose you want to say that this is good, then there must be a criteria. When you are doing critical thinking, okay, you are also self-correcting. In other words, you must be open-minded. Open-minded to all kinds of criticism. Because if you're not open-minded, okay, you won't be able to move on. You're not open-minded means you are rigid. You are narrow. And that's our problem. And that's why I come forth with the Hikmah Pedagogy. Because my intention is to open up the closing Muslim minds. When you use this method, you will challenge whatever their stand to see if they can defend their stand or not. And this is what the Quran is all about as well. You cannot just believe blindly. So that's why this pedagogy is very important. Because you have to defend your beliefs. Okay? And critical thinking, okay, is sensitive to context. Now, when I say sensitive to context, this is where hikmah comes in. If you're a person hikmah, you can have two sort of opinion on one thing. And some people don't understand. They say, this person is fickle. But look, suppose we have somebody, I think Imam Shafi'i, okay?
Huh? Tamam.
Okay, sorry, the interference. When he talked about somewhere in Baghdad, I think, if you want to buy a house, you have to look at the house. And then he said, when you go to another place, he said, you don't have to look at the house. And then somebody will puzzle, how come? He's giving two different judgments. But when you study it, you realize that the one that you say you don't have to look at the house, it's like a housing estate in Malaysia, where all the house, it is double story linked terrace house, it's all the same. So there's no point you look because it's the same. But the other one probably is a bungalow and designed according to the taste, you know, different taste. So it is different. That's what you have to see. So in other words, when you make judgment, you have to be sensitive to context. And that is what we call hikmah. Hikmah is putting things in the proper place, putting things in the right place. And it's not easy to put things in the right place. That's why if you're given hikmah, Allah says you've been given a lot of good. Only people who do albab will understand this. Okay, so let me move on. So this is, you can get this from the internet. Okay, very nice infographic. Okay, about thinking skills. Okay. Now, so the question is how to get wisdom, right? What is education in Islam? Okay, I want to go. This is what just now I mentioned. The failure to produce thinking by the West, even for example, even Sternberg, this Yale psychologist, he decided that IQ is useless for a successful person. So he worked on another quotient. He called it successful intelligence. But to be successful, besides critical and creative, you have to be practical. That means you have to know your situation. So this is where actually this is also wisdom. So there is a cycle in search of wisdom. Okay. For example, we begin with IQ, and then we have people like, I think Gardner, Goldman, either one of them. One of them was with EQ. EQ means you must give emphasis on your affective domain as well. Okay, your heart. And then comes another one with multiple intelligence. That means there's music, there's art, there's aesthetic, there is mathematics, verbal, you know. And then Sternberg comes with successful intelligence. And finally, he said that what is missing in our school today is wisdom. So that's what the way the West have come around. Wisdom is not new, right? I mean, it's not new, but it has been lost from the school. That's the point. When we talk about wisdom, we always remember the philosophers. If you are in the Western context, the philosophers. Why the philosophers? Because the philosophy means philosophy. Philosophia. Anglophile. Love of the British, right? Anglophile, English. Yeah. Fidophile. Love of kids. Yeah. So you say philosophia, love of wisdom, love of truth. This was what the Greek came with, and then pass it on in this prospect to the Muslim. Okay, but if you look at education in Islam, the end of education is wisdom. If you look at Al-Attah's definition just now, when it says that ilm is the arrival of meaning, okay, and then he call it ta'dib rather than tarbiyah. Ta'dib means inculcating adab, which is a discipline. putting things in the proper place, because adab means you have to be just. So you have adab of eating, adab of praying, adab of, there's so many adabs in Islam, right? What are these adab for? This to put things in the proper place. Adab towards teachers, adab towards parents, adab towards God. That is your positioning. So I said, recognizing your position. Okay, this is what aim is all about, what the meaning is all about. Your position in relationship to others. Okay, thinking is also about relationship of things, because in our mind there are so many things. Okay, in our mind there are so many things, but when we're able to connect these things, then it makes meaning. Okay. Okay. Now, adab. Why we pay so much attention to adab? We want to ensure that there is adil. When things are in their proper place, then there is adil, there is justice. The question now is how to know how to put things in the proper place. That is where hikmah comes in. Hikmah is the knowledge to know how to put things in the proper place. So the question now is, before I go to how to get hikmah, okay, let's look also, when you want to know about education, the aims of education, the goal of the teachers. The first teacher for the Muslim is the Prophet. Now, what is the function of the Prophet? Now, if you look in this slide, I show you here that there are many verses in the Quran related to these things. Okay, this is one verse in Surah Jumu'ah. Okay, you can find also this same verse in Baqarah and a few other places, which tell us the function of the Prophet. I'm not putting the Arabic version here. I'm just giving you the English translation. Okay. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّي رَسُولًا يَتْلُو مِنْهُمْ عَلَيْهِ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. So there are four things here. It is He, Allah, who has sent among the unbelievers a messenger from among themselves to rehearse to them His signs, to sanctify them, to instruct them in scripture and wisdom, although they had been before in manifest error. So even in this ayat, I shaded four colors here. One is to rehearse His signs. What is that? The other one is to sanctify them, purify them. The third one is to instruct them in scripture. That means teach them the Quran, teach them the Injil, scripture. The fourth one is wisdom. So this is what the Prophet has been sent for. And this is where I raised some questions yesterday to another speaker, because they don't tend to differentiate between the first and the third one. I think that the first one, the sign here is the bigger meaning of sign, ayat, which is the kauniyah, the creation, the universe, the scientist. That's why scientist is also ulama. Okay. The other one is instructed in scripture. That means that is really going to the Quran. And the fourth one here is wisdom. Now, somebody says that wisdom refers to the sunnah. So, we have to follow his sunnah. But actually, not all the word hikmah refers to sunnah. Just look at the next one. Allah grant wisdom to whom He pleased, and he to whom wisdom is granted receive indeed a benefit overflowing. But none will grasp the message but men of understanding. So here, this one is not wisdom of the hadith. This is wisdom. And this is where the West would not have this, because this is spiritual. This is spiritual. The intellect is not just your akal, the brain. Okay? In Islam, the intellect also is alub, your heart, the spiritual heart, the qalb. I'll show you later more, inshallah. Okay? So the point is, what I want to tell you in this slide is that, okay, wisdom is one of the ends of education. Education is not just for getting a job. But wisdom cannot be attained by just reciting the Quran. Without pondering, reflecting, no tadabbur, we cannot get it. Okay, so we change the tracking intelligence. We keep similar to the West here, but if we want hikmah, we have to have ethical and spiritual thinking. This is what we have in our Hikmah pedagogy. We have to add this. This dimension is missing. Because this spiritual dimension, this will be the one that will be receiving from Allah. You don't have to acquire it so hard. Allah will give you, provided you seek it. Where do we get it? Okay. I think you have heard a lot in, for example, in, let me stop sharing. Let me talk to you. Okay. It's nicer to see you than to see the slides in front of me. Okay. So, Yasin wal Qur'anil Hakim. Okay. It means what? It means that Yasin with the Quran full of wisdom. So in other words, one of the way to get wisdom is through reading the Quran. How would you know that there is a hereafter? There is Jannah and Jahannam if you don't read the Quran. And if you don't believe in that, and you live in this world, it's a loss. Khusrin, right? You're not wise. So, if you want real wisdom, you have to get it from the Quran. Okay? So that is a necessary condition. In fact, it's the sufficient condition. The rest is necessary, but without the Quran, it's not sufficient. Okay? So that's why we have to go back to the Quran. Okay? Because that's where we get the wisdom. But I want to show you that maybe I can share with you this infographic, you call it. Let me share it again. I know time is running out. I just try to end it here. Okay. Let me see. So, trying to put infographic. We have data. We receive it through thinking, critically, creatively, ethically. This is the lower intellect. From this, we get our knowledge. Most likely, it was through rational perception. We use our mind because we think about it, right? But without the spiritual thinking, okay, we cannot get the spiritual perception. So this is the thinking, rational and spiritual. Whether you want to stop by the rational, then we will miss things. But in our tradition, we must have the spiritual. Then we will get the recognition and acknowledgement. So here we have recognition and acknowledgement. This is Alatas use this word, recognition and acknowledgement. You recognize. Recognize means now you know. What does acknowledge means? What does acknowledge mean? If it's my class, if you are in front of me without the limitation of the microphones, okay, I would ask you to answer this question. Okay, what does acknowledgement mean? But because of the limitation that we have, acknowledgement means you have to practice it. The knowledge that you acquire, the knowledge that you have obtained, through ethical thinking, through creative thinking, to critical thinking, must be acted upon, must be practiced. Then only you will get hikmah. Maybe the next slide will show you another step. And this, I must acknowledge my former student who did a PhD with me. Okay, our theory of wisdom, Dr. Wan Mazwati. Okay, our book will be coming out soon, inshallah. So this is We have the forethinking, wise judgment, plus the practice, then you get wisdom. Maybe we should say just now that at this stage here just now, the spiritual thinking, this is where if your, what do you call that plate just now? Forgot it. Parabola. If your parabola is shiny, it will receive it. But if your parabola is very dirty, it comes like this, it go back. It is reflected. What a waste. Allah wants to give you, but it's reflected. So, oops, okay. So basically, this is the idea that I want to share. How to acquire wisdom. The one that we can acquire. The one that you receive, I will not be able to teach you. Okay? That one, you need your own practice. You need your own murshid, okay, to go at that level. But at the quiet stage, inshallah, we can do it. So what I plan to do for this coming weeks, okay, I have it written in front of me just now. This will be the content, inshallah. So I'm done with number 1. I will talk about number 2, reviving philosophical inquiry in the Muslim context. And then a little bit about philosophy, because you want to do philosophical inquiry, you need to know some philosophy. Then we will go to the soft skills and how Hikmah Pedagogy enhance your soft skill, especially in our attempt to reach for wisdom. Good judgment. Wisdom means sound judgment, okay? Person with sound judgment, they don't make mistakes so often. That's why we call the judge Hakim. But they're supposed to give good judgment, okay? And then we will discuss about philosophical questions. Then there'll be practice on community of inquiry, the teaching method, which is very, very brief here, because you need to practice it often. Then it becomes part of you. You need to practice this pedagogy very often. It becomes part of you. And I'm sorry I couldn't demonstrate the Hikmah Pedagogy as I teach you today because of the limitation. It's just like a one-way conversation. It's a monologue rather than a dialogue. A good Hikmah Pedagogy would involve a lot of discussion and dialogue. So I hope to be able to do that later. This is my first try using this technology. I'm trying my best, okay? So I think now let's look at the chat. Sometimes for question and discussion. Where's the chat?
Huh? I will read it for you, Prof.
You will read for me?
I will select the question.
Oh, you select the question. You don't want me to select by myself, huh? That's not
there are
fair,
many.
huh?
There are many. You will be get lost.
Okay. Okay, Brother Sharan.
Okay, we take one first from Sister Khadija. How about the mental health issues in education? What is the significance of high population density in the world today? We hear every day that population growth causes problems, especially to the lower income.
So the question is, how is it about mental health? Why we're not discussing mental health?
How about the mental health issues in education?
The mental act or health?
Health.
Mental health. Well, I'm not discussing this so much here, although mental health is very important. It's very important, especially at my age. There's nothing more worthwhile and more valuable than having good health. Not just mental health, okay? Physical health, mental health, spiritual health, all the health that you have. But without good mental health, we are destroyed. because mental health means your mind. Something wrong with your mind. Okay, so definitely, if you can communicate with Professor Malik Badri, okay, the mental health comes with a balance in life, I think, and having the spiritual health, okay, and the knowledge of nutrition and so on. So, but I'm sorry, Sister Khadijah, that that is not my focus. Okay, so that's why I'm not putting anything on mental health. When I say spiritual health, I'm trying to connect wisdom. Okay, wisdom with thinking, practice, and then wisdom. So mental health is something that is necessary before we can live. So I think I hope I answer your question, because I don't want to dwell so much on something that I'm not an authority to talk on. Okay.
Okay, next one, Brother Anwar Kara asked about Montessori pedagogy, which is widespread even in the Muslim world. What do you think about it?
Montessori pedagogy is being used widely in Muslim world?
Yeah.
I see. I'm not so sure about that. Okay. But I know that Montessori, I studied Montessori when I was doing my PhD as one of the educationalists. Okay. She's a medical doctor. She deals with special children. Okay. And because she dealt with special children, the method that she used is basically meant for them. Basically manipulatives, blocks. They are manipulatives because they are special children. But they later found out that even the normal children can benefit from this. So that's why they took the Montessori method to the and the normal children. And whether it's widespread or not, as far as I know, in Malaysia, it's not that widespread. And she has a spiritual belief as well. So I guess the method, if it's good, why not? But it might not be whole education like what the Japanese have. Okay, that's something else also. But my focus is the Muslim mind. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. The Muslim mind, how to transform the Muslim mind, especially through Islamic studies education. That's why I focus on that, because I see we are not putting the Quran in the proper place. It's the book of guidance. It's the book for action. But we spend months, years memorizing, but not, of course, maybe we get some spiritual effect, but not wisdom, acting upon it. So this is my focus, Brother Anwar. Okay?
Okay, we take from Brother Nuruddin. Prof, is the goal of 21st century education only related to practical interests and not targeting the search for existential truth anymore? How does the paradigm of Tawhid view the direction of education in the current era of digital capitalism?
Yeah, this is what we have. We must have the strength and the wisdom to overcome it. Yes, education today has lost its compass. That's why I was saying, it has lost its compass. Education today is vocation. It's vocational education. University education is for vocational education. In the past, university education was elitist, for producing thinkers, people who can think and solve the problem of society. Okay, but today, no. And how can you blame the university if that is what the quote unquote the customer demands, the customer wants? Okay, and because of that change of notion, we are regarding now, I'm considering the university as a vocational institution. It's not a universitas, and because of its vocational, it's been transformed to become a vocational institution, it will disappear. Why it will disappear? Because what you produce from the university does not match what is required outside. And that is okay if it's free. Okay. That's all right if it's free. But you know that students have to pay a hefty sum of money, right? Especially if you go to other Western universities or you go very far from your country, you have to pay a hefty sum of money. And at the end of the day, when you graduate, there is no job, and you have to become creative and critical and what do you call this? Have all the soft skills, interpersonal, intersocial, being able to collaborate with others. You have to have all of those. You don't need to go to universities for that if you're trained for it. So that's why in those days in the Malay world, okay, my parents' time, they always say to us, if you go to school just to end yourself up, if you're a girl, okay, in the kitchen, no need to go to school, wasting my money. That's what my father would say. Or if you go to school, you become a rubber tapper or a fisherman, there's no need. Even in those days, our parents were already looking at education as a form of investment, because for us at that point in time, it's still low, but to them, it's still high. They have to fork their money to send their children to school. So if you consider higher education as a vocational institution, it'll be doomed. So where do we produce our thinkers? This is the place to produce those elites and thinkers and leaders of the country, not just vocational, where they can learn it on the job training, on site. Okay, so this is, and also what we get today is not balanced, and that's why we establish Islamic universities, not Islamic universities in the old sense, like just studying the ulum naqliyah, but studying both ulum aqliyah and naqliyah, and preparing people in some field of studies would require higher education, medical, engineers, you require that, because you can't train them. But for businesses, maybe they said they better learn through practice rather than learning for a master's or a PhD, unless they want to become lecturers. Okay, so that's why IIUM, the present rector, is very concerned about sustainability and he's bringing back the national philosophy of education, which call for the balance of the spirit, intellect, okay, physical and spiritual. Bringing back all those things. We need to have that balance. We have lost it. Yes, you are right. Especially even in the West, some professors are very particular about this. They're also very sad about this. But sometimes the demand of the economic people, right? The demand is they are putting pressure on the intellectuals. So they have the money, and even today in our system, you have private education and public education. Public education is still not so bad, still giving both knowledge if possible, not the same level. But private education is worse. They will only cater for the needs of the market. If the market demands, what do you call this, more business people, they will have those courses, but no need prerequisites of philosophy or sociology. But you notice in America, despite what's going on, there's one thing about them. They retain their strength, and the strength is in the liberal arts. The liberal arts means they have to take courses like in the field of humanities, arts, sociology, social sciences, human sciences. So in other words, they still have a balance. Although they become medical doctor, they have exposure to sociology, exposure to philosophy a little bit, So in other words, they are more balanced than us. And in fact, now the professors there are saying that what we need to offer our students in the future is not specialized, but general, maybe for the undergraduates, general liberal arts and sciences. That's the foundation. And then they specialize at the master's and the PhD. Whereas in our case, we specialize immediately at the bachelor level. So that's a big difference. I experienced having education in America, and I truly love it because I can see that it caters for the whole person. You don't specialize until the last 2 years. You have 2 years to explore all the different fields of knowledge by their divisions. So you know what is the sciences, what is sociology, what is humanities. It makes you a broader person. This is what we want actually, and that's what I think Professor Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, when he became the rector, he combined the human sciences and the revealed sciences. But what I see is lacking. These people, they know the revealed, they know at least the human sciences, they don't know anything about the empirical applied sciences. You need to have some knowledge of biology or physics or chemistry to understand all the development in the world today. That's why in my proposal of curriculum, in my book towards an Islamic curriculum, I came up with the core should have not just revealed plus human, but some physical sciences.
Okay, we take the last question from Brother Muhammad Hijazi. Prof, does hikmah, wisdom, equate with critical thinking, or is it much wider and broader in meaning? With critical thinking, we also are able to make a judgment of that, as that for hikmah.
I think I showed you the last infographic just now. It's not just critical thinking. Notice the 3 circles and where the hikmah is coming from. It is combination of all, not critical alone. Critical alone is not enough. It's not sufficient. Necessary but not sufficient. Creative is necessary, not sufficient. That's why for the Islamic tradition, for us to get that wisdom, we have to have the 3 components: critical, creative, and then the spiritual, ethical. And that's where the Quran and the Sunnah comes in, very important. That's where the cup comes in, very important. Otherwise, we will lose the balance. And that's what happened to the West. Okay?
Thank you so much, Prof. Any final word before we close, Prof?
Well, it's a bit difficult for me whose style of teaching, okay, if you're my student, whose style of teaching is asking a lot of questions and discussing a lot of things to students. This is the first class or the first lecture. Normally, the first one is the most difficult one, because you have to explain the problem. Okay, then only it's worth learning. So this is the most difficult one. But subsequently, this is where I will go into the hikmah thing, and then that philosophy, and then hikmah and the method. That's the most important thing for you, especially as lecturers and teachers, is the method of teaching. I have not explained much about what is the method. I just explained to you that the goal today is wisdom. Next time is what is the method to get that, inshallah. Okay? I hope you will continue joining me.
Okay, Prof. We'll see you next week, same day, same time. I hope everyone will join us again, inshallah. Till then, we'll meet again in other classes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.